guys, I'm back, and today I have something different for you. So today is the first segment of introducing, where I will be speaking about an author and the literary movement of the period and of that author in particular. And today I thought I would start with Sylvia Plath, one of my all-time favorites. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm taking a look at my notes. Be sure that I say everything that I want to say. I don't know if you've read Sylvia Plath, if you know Sylvia Plath or not, so I thought I would tell you a little bit about her too. So Sylvia was born in 1942 in Boston in the USA. She studied at Smith College and then she won a Fulbright scholarship to study at Cambridge. Her mother, Aurelia Plath, is from Austrian descendants, and her father, Otto Plath, was German. And his death was very, very hard on Sylvia. She was only 9 at the time, and from then on she had to deal with severe episodes of depression and even attempt suicide more than once. But even though at Smith College she was excellent, she was still refused to get into Harvard in a writing class, and that led to another very big depression, and she was actually treated with electroconvulsive therapy. So, you know, she was having problems and trouble since a very young age. She moved to Cambridge on a scholarship. She continued to write, and there she met Ted Hughes. Maybe you know Ted Hughes as well, or maybe you don't. He's a quite famous poet, and they got married in 1956, if I'm not mistaken, yes. After which they moved to America, and they both were working there. Sylvia was working at Smith College, where she was a student before as a professor. But after some time, she felt like teaching and writing was not something for her. She was not able to keep a healthy writing rhythm. So she decided to quit her job, and she got a job as a receptionist and tried to, get around to write a bit more. Even though she had these problems with her writing, she still helped Ted with his, so she was dealing mostly with his publishers and getting to publish his books. So she wasn't 100% focused while she was married to Ted Hughes. She was not 100% focused on her writing, and okay, I'll get back to that in a minute. There's an interview. It's a joint interview. You can listen to it on YouTube. I think it's still there. It's still here. Where she says that she can't write just anywhere. She needs to have her own space, and it needs to be silent. She can't have any distractions, any noise whatsoever. She says she gets easily distracted. Whereas Ted in that interview says that he can write anywhere at any time. If there's noise, if there isn't, he's fine with that. So you see, there's a big difference here between writers. Okay, so you are a writer, but it doesn't mean that you have the same habits, so to speak. So while married to Ted, Sylvia published her first book of poems called The Colossus in 1960, and after that she continued to write, but still the book wasn't as well received as she hoped. So even though she kept writing after that, she wasn't still 100% focused on that. So with work and then motherhood, she just wasn't still 100% focused on writing alone. Also, it is known, and it's a public thing. Nowadays everybody knows that. If you know Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath, and if you know a little bit about their history together, you probably know that Ted kept a lot of affairs, and his last one was with, let me just check her name because I don't remember I don't know if I wrote it down. Yeah, Asia Wedel. Wedel? I'm not sure if I'm if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Whom Ted and Sylvia rented their house to, their London apartment to Asia and to her husband. And after finding out about that one last affair, Sylvia left with their children back to the city. So they were in Devon, I think, and she wanted to get back to London, so she just left that and she took their children. It was only when she left that and that she had like a burst of creativity on what we now call her last fall. She wrote amazing poems and so violent and descriptive. You could see there was a change in her writing style from the Colossus and the Bell Jar to Ariel. The book itself, a lot of the, not the book itself, but a lot of the poems in there are quite controversial because she overused the image of the Holocaust, and the use of this imagery is considered to be disrespectful to the victims, as Sylvia had no connection whatsoever with the horrendous event. She wasn't Jewish. She wasn't. Her father was German, but she had never been there, and her family had no connections with the Holocaust in any way. So her literary movement is called confessional poetry, and it's often confused with memoir. Confessional poetry it's a type of movement where the authors the poets would use personal experiences to talk about. They would use their personal experience in their poems, but not so much as being autobiographical. So up until then, poetry, it was exploring personal experiences, but with a different purpose. The purposes could be political, social, trying to voice the nation, self-discovery, like Ginsberg. But the poetry of, for example, Robert Lowell, who was Sylvia's professor and the professor at Anne Sexton as well, was a bit more. It was raw and naked and was so descriptive, and that sometimes it could be so violent and aggressive, because it was sharing personal experiences, but at the same time was keeping the fiction factor alive. That's one of my problems with Sylvia, is that I look at her works, I read her works, and I try without, I'm doing it without even realizing it. I try to look for details that can tell me more about her life, and that's something that you shouldn't do because it's not a memoir. It's not autobiographical. A lot of the things that she used in her poems and in the Bell Jar. Obviously, the Bell Jar. It's probably, if you don't know her poetry, but if you know the Bell Jar, a lot of the events in the story are from her own personal experience, but still there's a lot of fiction involved, so you can't just say that it was her, the character Esther Greenwood was her. It's not as easy as it seems. Also, some people might say that confessional poetry is a type of poetry that is whiny and needy. I look at it in a different perspective, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. Confessional poetry was a way to share their experiences, but at the same time, and this was something that Sylvia actually stated, at the same time, it was supposed to bring more victims together. So people who went through something similar or were going through something else, but they thought they couldn't speak up. And this type of poetry, this type of works were supposed to bring all those people together. And I think the use and the overuse of the image of the Holocaust had a lot of the shock factor. She wanted to be heard, she wanted to be incredible, she wanted to be remembered, and she used the Holocaust as a sort of shock factor, and because it was an event that affected the entire human race in general, obviously. A lot of her experience and poems in Ariel are very personal, specifically related to her experiences growing up without a father and with her father. So even though he died when she was 9, they had a stressful relationship. He wasn't the most present father of all. I actually want to quote something about the whole literary movement of confessional poetry. To what extent can the poetry of private and often obscure suffering express a public, a universal agony? To what extent can madness in an individual be taken for the derangement and the meaninglessness of society as a whole? So we moved from a sort of classicism with Eliot to a sort of expressive romanticism, where art can only happen if you use your personal experiences for the sake of art and for the sake also of your mental health. So the artist becomes the art, in a way. So obviously it's normal that memoir is often linked with confessional poetry, and at times descriptions and characteristics can overlap a little bit. But really, for example, in Sylvia's case, she was really just there's not we are not 100% sure that she was using personal experiences in every poem, and we don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know if she was talking about herself or not. So that's the main difference between a memoir and confessional poetry. Confessional poetry is because memoir often is written in the first person, whereas confessional poetry has a subject, has a protagonist. So there's a lot of the fiction factor still present. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the Colossus or Ariel to show you. I've read most of her poems, but I'm still missing some from the Colossus because I actually had to present a paper on Sylvia Plath's poems Daddy and Lady Lazarus, and because of that I read others in Ariel. So I haven't really worked with the Colossus, and I have never studied Sylvia Plath at university or at school. I studied at Hughes at university, but I do have a copy of the Belgian that I can show you. So this is published by Harper Perennial from the collection Modern Classics. I really love this cover. It's different from all the others that I've seen. All the others have the bell jar, and this one, I think it's a bit more, it's different. My copy, it's a bit, it's really used, it's all bendy, and it's really, everything is really, I don't know, broken. I don't know if you read this book. It's an easy read. This edition has 244 pages. The spacing is quite big, so it's an easy read. I like to read this in the summer, but I feel like this is a bit more of a winter reading. So give it a shot if you haven't read. This is the only novel by Sylvia Plath. All of her other works are poetry, and you can also read her diaries now. Actually, I have a copy of her diaries, but on my laptop. I haven't got a physical copy yet, but I want to. I came across Sylvia Plath. I don't remember exactly how, but I think it was in the film. Someone mentioned Sylvia Plath, and when I look it up, I think I read this when I was 17 or 18, and I didn't go through the same thing as Sylvia, obviously, but it wasn't a very happy time for me either. And in a way, it kind of feels like you're, it's not that you're being understood, but just that, maybe you're not alone in this. And I think this type of it's one of my favorite literary movements, and I think there's still so much to study on this. And I was actually really sad that I never studied Sylvia Plath or any other confessional poet in at university. So who knows, one day maybe I'll I'll buckle down and study it for myself. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I don't know if I'm gonna do this segment on a monthly basis or every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. I haven't decided yet. Let me know if there's a writer or poet you would like me to talk about and a literary movement that you would like to know a little bit more. And I'll see you on my next video. Bye.